Davey, what's up, my man?
How's it going?
It's going, dude. Well, guys, this is the official first episode of the FTT show. I am Nick. With me is my co-host, Davey K Media. I don't know. What would you rather be called? Davey K Media? Dave?
I mean, it doesn't really matter.
Doesn't matter.
Davey, Dave. I mean, it feels childish being called Davey because it's a childhood nickname, but roll with it, man. Right?
Yeah, if it's sentimental, you like it, who cares, right?
I mean, if you could see how I was acting before this started, you'd understand the childish part anyway.
All right, we'll just go with Davey then. How about that?
So, all right. Keep it consistent with the branding.
Right. So, but yeah, guys, so it is the absolute first episode. So we are going to introduce ourselves. We're going to tell a little bit of our gaming past and stuff like that. And then we're going to get right into some gaming news. In the news, guys, there is a case that sets on fire. So we're going to talk about it.
You know, but anyways, potentially,
potentially, but we have to, you gotta spark up the
spark,
yeah. You like that?
I see what you did there. I see.
But anyways, Davey, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, about your gaming background, whether you stream, all that kind of stuff, your YouTube, things like that. Just a little bit about who you are and why you game.
I am, well, first and foremost, I am an old man, 40 years old, and I have been playing games since the good old days of the original NES. I grew up on it. I've had a game console or something that could play games in some capacity since I was about 5 years old. Learned how to play video games with Super Mario Brothers and Legend of Zelda, so I have a soft spot still for Nintendo. But, I've kind of touched on every brand that's been out there. I've had PlayStations, I've had Xboxes. I have all three right now. But I migrated to PC gaming. Really, I got interested in streaming and YouTube in 2012. My YouTube channel is actually 9 years old. Well, it's 8 years old right now, but it'll be 9 in September. So it's been around for a long time. It started as a gaming channel. Minecraft was the influence. Everybody was playing Minecraft and YouTube videos were all over the place. So I was like, seemed like a fun thing to try. Turned out I was really terrible. Not just at the game, but actually at content creation. But, as time has gone on, I've learned a lot and have perfected my craft a little bit. Not a lot. I mean, I'm still pretty terrible. Let's be honest. I just have much better equipment.
I don't know about that. I've seen your videos. They're pretty good. So.
But it initially started as a gaming channel, and then a few years later, I started to get into PC tech. I got interested in building a PC. Finally achieved the dream of building a true, actual workhorse PC in 2017. And it has evolved since then to the monstrosity that is on my desk to the right of me. And, that's kind of what happened. I decided to change the gaming channel to a tech channel. And it's started to pick up a little bit of late, despite the fact that I have been dealing with health issues for the last several months. In a nutshell, Davey K Media. If you search for it on Twitch, if you search for it on YouTube, you will find me. Best of luck to you.
Nice. Yeah. As far as me, I didn't grow up as a gamer. I basically, when I was about 9 years old or so, my buddy had the NES. He had PlayStation 1 and 2 and stuff like that. And I'd go over to his house, and I would play Siphon Filter, and we'd play Halo, and we'd play games like that. And of course, me and stealth games are not ideal at all. But shut up.
No, I feel that so much. I feel that statement so much.
Yeah. But anyways, so I grew up, playing those, and I don't know, Siphon Filter still has a bitter, sweet taste in my mouth because it was a good game at the time. And but me and stealth, not a good thing. But yeah, so I grew up doing that, and then when I was about, was it 10 or 11, we got our Sega Genesis, and then that's when we had our first like console in our house. I would play Sonic. We played like the Lion King game. You know, we'd play games like that, and then you know what I'm talking about, don't you?
I do.
So I was introduced that way, and then after I graduated high school, moved out, I bought my first like PlayStation 2, and got it really into gaming. And my first game on a PlayStation 2 of my own was Grand Theft Auto 3. Remember that?
That game triggered
the cheat codes to get the plane. You know.
Oh my gosh! You know, all the stuff. Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So yeah, and then I graduated from that, and then I went on to get like PS3, Xbox 360, and then eventually built my own PC, and yeah, I haven't looked back ever since I got a PC. So, but yeah, that's the background of me in gaming. It's not like I've been gaming my whole entire life, but it's been around there for quite some time.
Yeah. So I mean, if we get a console roll call, how many consoles are we getting listed off here?
Like actually have right now?
Well, that you've ever had, like every console you've gone through.
Every console I've ever been. Okay,
let's get a list. Let's get a list.
It's going to be pretty short when it comes to me. I'll tell you that.
Oh, you're going to be disgusted. It's going to be disgusting when we get to me.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, so Sega Genesis was the first one, and then PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, PlayStation 4, the original Xbox. Yeah, I had that for a little bit because I played, what was it, Bullets? Was that the name of the game? Or Black?
Black.
Yeah.
Yep, I played that game.
Because it had bullets on the cover, but it was called Black.
Yeah.
So I had it right. I had that for a little bit, and then I got a 360, the Xbox One. It's mainly my kids, but we have a Nintendo Switch, and that's basically the only Nintendo I've ever owned. I've never owned like a 3DS or anything like that. So my list is probably pretty dang short compared to yours. So, and I'll sit back and relax now.
Yeah. Let's see. Started with the original Nintendo, Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis. I've had a Game Boy. I had a Game Boy at one point. I've had Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance. Skipped the Saturn. Had a Sega Dreamcast for a little while. PlayStation 1, PlayStation 2, Xbox 360, Xbox One S, Nintendo 64, Nintendo GameCube, Nintendo Wii, Nintendo Wii U, Nintendo Switch, and currently still have a Switch, PS3, and the Xbox One S in here. And I have a Game Boy, or a 3DS. I have a 3DS XL somewhere. Nice. It's in this room. I'm sure.
Yeah, so you beat me. Got it.
I mean, and I'm not even like, that doesn't even touch like some of the people I know who've had like the Ataris and the Commodores, and they go back even further to me. Like there are people who started even earlier than I did.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like I was very late to the PC gaming scene.
Right. Same. Yeah.
So,
especially with me just getting into the PC gaming, like what, 3 years ago?
Yeah. So, 3-4 years ago is about when I got I got in earlier. I had a laptop in 2014 that I was using to play and record Minecraft, but didn't get serious about it until really in the last couple of years. Fun fact, that PC in 2017 wasn't my first actual PC. I actually was able to find the information on the PC I built in 2009 that was not for gaming, that I think I kind of want to rebuild just to see how terrible it is.
Oh, I think I remember you mentioning that. Like
AMD Athlon 6400 plus processor. Good old dual core.
Heck yeah, dude.
With
you should do it.
4 gigs of DDR2 or something like that memory.
Man, dude.
I mean, 4 gigs was big time back then. I couldn't tell you what video card I was using. I know I got a video card at some point. I know it was an Nvidia because I know when I got it, my mom's like, oh, GeForce is really good. But it was not a good video card. I can assure you. Maybe a future project when I'm healthy.
What year was that?
2009.
2009?
Yeah. I mean, I could look and see what was out, but I can guarantee it wasn't new. And it was like $50. Because I just thought, I could just go get one because I wanted to play, I think it was Rainbow Six, like the original Rainbow Six.
Yeah. My first PC ever, I was still doing mostly console, like streaming at that point. So when I got or made it, it just had a, what was it? The 650 Ti. Because I'm like the only thing I'm gonna play on PC was Minecraft. Like, and I was like, it can handle that. It can handle that. So I got I got a 650 Ti and I regret it right off the bat. But yeah.
Yeah, see,
that
when
was
my first PC that I
while ago.
actually built, I thought about how I wanted to do streaming and video editing and play games. So good old Intel i7 5820K, GTX 1070 thing could handle anything, even at 1440p. It's pretty solid system.
Yeah, I think my first one was like
Nerd out, everybody.
the first one I got was when I first started streaming on Twitch was back in 2013. So that was my first PC, and it had the 8320, AMD 8320. I did have 8 gigs of RAM at first, then I upgraded to 32, and then I had the 650 Ti in it. And then I
Right.
upgraded from that to the I wouldn't say it's a huge upgrade. Maybe it is, but I went from that to the RX 480, and then I went from that to 1060, and then what I got now. So
Right.
like
Yeah. So
yeah.
Yeah, 8700K 1080 Ti at the moment. Looking to upgrade down the road, but we'll see.
Yeah, man. You realize after a period of time, like what mistakes you made and how you want to improve it on your next build.
Well, I mean, you can apply that to everything. I mean, the amount of things that I have bought over the last couple of years, not just for the PC side, but for the YouTube side, it's just like piece after piece after piece after piece I keep adding.
Right.
And I've learned a lot over the last few years, and I think I'm still learning. And I feel better about myself when I go and I watch some of these other creators and I see their first videos look just as bad as mine did. And I'm like, okay, well, not so bad.
Right. Right.
But half the battle, and I will say this to anybody who's interested in getting into this, half the battle is understanding and learning how to use what you currently have. Buying a $2,000 camera for YouTube isn't going to make your YouTube videos look great.
No.
The one thing that I think people forget about is the audio, the lighting. Good audio, good lighting, and a good lens will take a cheaper camera and make it look better than what you did at $2,000. So,
right.
Just, I think people immediately want to jump to the most expensive, best of the best, and that will make it easier, but you still got to know how to use what you've got.
Yeah. Yeah, man. It's when I first started, like my next, like I try to look towards the future, but at the same time I gotta understand, like I don't have some of the funds like I wish I did as far as for setting aside for a build. So trying to find the best product I can for my price range and making it work was very interesting. And it's been very interesting the last 3 years trying to figure like stuff out and all that kind of good stuff. But
it's part of
it's working.
It's part of the battle.
So we're gonna jump right into this. I didn't watch much of it, so this is gonna be mostly you when it comes to this, okay? But as far as CES, what stood out to you, and what stood out, and what were you disappointed about?
I'm gonna start with the disappointed because CES isn't the exciting one for me. I've talked to you about this off stream and all that. Computex is usually where like all the big stuff comes out, and that's where, especially with the PC industry, Computex is the time when companies really bring things out. CES is, as I like to describe it, it's the, hey, here's what we're working on, but you may or may not see it anytime soon. That being said, AMD and Intel both had opportunities here, I think, that they didn't really use properly. Gamers Nexus has a great series of videos basically going through AMD, Intel, and Nvidia's announcements, and basically there was just, especially with AMD's, there was a lot of patting of each other on the back. They had a lot of companies do little video segments, and they just lot of, hey, we're all doing a really great job. And then you had 5 minutes of laptop SKUs,
Right.
which is fine. But, you know, those laptop SKUs are a really important segment of what AMD needs to still do better in. They've got the build your own segment. They're gaining in the server space. They're really the only player at the moment with anything feasible in the high-end desktop space. Pre-builts and laptops are where they need to make the most ground, and you basically glossed over these 5000 series mobile CPUs that are coming to laptops. And it was the same thing. Like, I mean, we can go on about Intel struggles, and they've struggled.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a lot of the same thing. It's like, okay, here comes Rocket Lake. We've reduced 2 cores off of the top of the line. But, you know, again, everybody's just kind of, I think the virtual part is what threw everybody off. And nobody really knew how to handle that. You know, instead of going into showrooms and seeing things, you're getting these pre-recorded visual puff pieces is what it ended up being. I mean, Nvidia came out with in terms of the major hardware, they were the only one who had anything that was like significant with the 3060 announcement. But, you know, everybody was waiting for a 3080 Ti, which is apparently being pushed back due to a number of issues. So there just wasn't a whole lot to be terribly excited about. The only thing I really saw that really was like, okay, that was pretty cool, was cases. I mean, Corsair announced some cases. We'll talk about those in a little bit, but
yeah.
I think I think people were just expecting more, and it just, you know, a lot of it fell flat.
Do you think it fell flat mostly because of like COVID and that, or do you think like just the gaming industry right now is pretty flat?
Well, I think it fell flat because, one, there wasn't anything. Like, I think some people are still waiting to see what the next, you know, there hasn't been a whole lot of talk about 5000 series Threadripper.
Mm-hmm.
So I think some people were waiting for maybe something on that, or maybe even like, hey, we're working on getting more processors out. We know there's a shortage, but that wasn't addressed. Instead, it was a lot of, we're doing really great. Hey, let me pat you on the back and you can pat me on the back. And we can talk about how great our working relationship is. While you've got people watching a Twitch channel that shows you when things come back in stock.
Right.
So
yeah.
I think there's a lot of disconnect
Yeah.
at the moment, and people are frustrated. I think there are a lot of people who want to upgrade their graphics card. They want to upgrade their CPU, and they can't.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to buy Intel, you can. Especially like the 10900K is in stock. I've seen it.
Yeah.
It's not a unicorn.
It's not.
No,
Did you take a picture of it?
No. I mean, Micro Center had 25 plus, so I figured, you know, it was pretty good.
Well, they say if you don't have a picture of it, then it's not really real. So
yeah, it's unfortunate.
Still a unicorn, I guess.
I mean, the 5900X, the 5950X are definitely unicorns right now.
Yes. And the funny thing about that is the only places you ever see these kind of things, like the new AMD chips, the new 3000 series cards, are on build shows. And I think a lot of people are going that route, even if it costs like, you know,
I mean,
$1,000 more just so they can have it.
Yeah, people are buying pre-builts because they can get the cards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've heard about that. They buy the pre-builts and then they yank out the card and then they sell the rest, or, you know, put another card in it, their old card in it, and give it something, you know.
It's a problem right now. It's industry wide. It's industry wide. I mean, these Lian Li fans that I've got behind me are jacked up in price too.
Dude, everything is jacked up. Whether it be the fans, whether it be CPUs, GPUs, everything is jacked up. I don't know, man. Like it's one of those things right now where if there isn't a change, we're gonna see these prices just keep soaring because they're gonna be scalped and then they're gonna sell them for a massively high price.
Yeah.
And then like 6 months from now, then they'll come down in price.
Yeah, and I mean, and you've got
raised back up with the next line.
And you've got a couple of things working. I mean, we've talked about, there's been enough talk about the tariffs. The tariffs aren't helping. Yeah. Shortages aren't helping. COVID's not helping. There's a lot of stuff that's contributing, and it's all just kind of coming together in a really unfortunate time. And everybody's also working from home. They have more time for games because you can't go anywhere in a lot of states.
Yeah.
And it's like the perfect storm of everything that could happen. And, you know, here we are. And scalpers figuring out how to buy all the stock the moment it comes available.
Right. Damn you. How dare you?
You weren't supposed to tell.
It's all right. Right. It is pretty sad. And here's a cool thing. So you know how there's a shortage on everything, whether it be PS5s, Xbox, GPUs, CPUs, whatever. Cool thing is, and I think I told you, I don't know if I told you about this or not, but Friday I was working with a coworker that I normally don't work with, and he got lucky. You know, things were going our way that day, and he's like, "Oh my gosh, Walmart's having their Xboxes in stock in 10 minutes." I'm like, "Dude, try it. Just keep refreshing. We're driving. Just keep trying." I was driving, by the way. He wasn't. We're gonna make that clear, okay? He's not refreshing while driving. So anyways, he's refreshing, and he didn't get it the first time. And then this was through Walmart, and they said, okay, and another batch is coming in the next 10 minutes. So we waited, and he refreshed in about 10 minutes, was able to get an Xbox, luckily. It's like playing the lottery. Like,
it is. Which,
it's
really hey, coincidentally,
bad, dude.
Newegg has put out their lottery system that you can enroll in to try and get lucky. The one thing that I will say for people who are looking for a graphics card, if you are not brand specific and you don't care and it's Nvidia that you're looking at, EVGA. Go to EVGA's website, go to their product page with the graphics cards, pick the one that you want, 3060 Ti, 3070, 3080, whatever it may be, and hit the auto notify. It will put you in a queue, and when your position in the queue comes up, they will send you an email, and you have 8 hours from the moment you receive that email to buy the card that is allocated for you. So if you're not brand specific and you don't care, EVGA, as far as I know, is the only vendor doing this. Just putting that out there.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm glad that you brought that up. I hope more people, or more companies, I should say, not people, more companies do the same thing to try to get around the scalpers. It's maddening to think about how you got to try to fight a scalper to get something that you want.
Yep.
Like, you can't go into a store and get it because there's shortages and things like that. It's just, man, one of these times, dude. It's these times that are
it's the times we live in, and it's unfortunate that it does happen. But I do still hold out the hope that by end of spring, somewhere along there, as more product is rolled out, things will settle down. If there's also silicon shortages that I've caught wind of that are going around. So that's part of the problem too, is everybody's trying to get a piece of the pie, and the pie hasn't grown, and there's more people throwing things. So again, remember AMD with their new GPUs, AMD CPUs, Nvidia GPUs. Intel has their own fabrication, but we all know their struggles. Even Apple has been, going in and doing. They've had some new MacBooks that came out. So I don't know if that's contributing as well. So there's a lot of people grabbing at a pie that hasn't gotten any bigger.
Yeah. While we're on this subject of graphics cards, what is your thoughts with the announcement of the RTX 3060?
I think Nvidia does this thing every single time they announce a graphics card where they undercut a previous graphics card that was announced. They did it with the 3060 Ti, where it basically just a shade slower than the 3070. The 3060 is interesting to me though, because of the fact that the 3060 has more VRAM. So I think for content creators, workstation people who utilize the GPU memory, they might be throwing you a bone. I think some of that's a response to AMD, with AMD throwing a bunch of VRAM in their cards. But that was the interesting part, and it pretty much points to the fact you're going to see refreshes of all these cards at some point with more VRAM. But again, I saw a number of things today that the board partners have announced pricing that is significantly higher than the MSRP that Nvidia put up there. Watch out for that as well. You're not gonna find a 3060 for $330.
No,
It's just not going to happen.
no.
Even if you thought there was a sliver of a chance, the board partners are already saying it's going to be much higher than that. And I think a lot of that's the tariffs.
What do you think about the price? What do you think it's going to jump up to? Because if you look at the TI, for example, what the EVGA XE, that was originally, what was it, 429 or something like that. Now jumped up to like 469.
Oh, you're going to see them approach 400. I didn't look at that. I didn't look at any of the stuff, so I don't have it in front of me. I just came across. I saw it in a tweet, so I didn't really have time to look at it earlier. It's something that I saw come out today, but
okay.
I mean, I would say you're going to see 380 to 400 before scalpers,
right? After scalpers, 1200. It's insane, dude. I don't get it.
But I do. We're going to see. You're going to see. I don't know if they're going to call them supers again. I still hate that name so much. But you're going to see, 3070, 3080 refreshes with more VRAM. The mythical 3080 Ti.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can see that.
So the 12 gigs of VRAM on the 3060 points towards them refreshing their cards. Like they were going to. We all know they were going to do it. They do it every generation.
From your previous experience, when do they usually release the TI compared to the flagship of that graphics card?
It seems like it's 6 months to a year. It's not usually right away.
So you're saying as soon as everybody can buy one, they'll come out with the TI.
Right. Why do you think everybody gets all pissed off? They did it with the supers. Everybody bought a 2080, and then a few months later, the 2080 Super was announced, although the 2080 Super was dumb. I think the 2070 Super was the one that made everybody mad because it was just a hair slower than the 2080. That 2070 Super was juiced up.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know, man. It's gonna. I think this is what I personally think. I think that even AMD, they need to pump the brakes on releasing these cards until there's more out in the public. There's more out in the wild for the basic consumer to get their hands on. If you're gonna pump out, hey, we got a 3080 Ti now, we got a 3070 Ti or a Super, whatever it may be, because they've already done with the 3060, so it's just gonna go up now. But nobody can get them.
Yep.
If they were smart, I think they would pump the brakes. They'd make these cards last a little. I mean, these cards will last a long time, but what is it? From the 2000 to 3000 series was 5 years, 4.5 years, something like that. The clock's already ticked, right? We're already 3 months into it or something like that. So we're a quarter into the first year already, and nobody can really get their hands on it.
Yeah. No, it's like this every time a product launches, but it's even more pronounced this time. People forget 10 series cards couldn't be found for the first few months. 20 series cards couldn't be found. Everybody yelled about the 20 series prices, and then they sold out of 2080 Ti's the moment they launched.
Yeah.
Right. They sell out because there's always somebody with the money to buy them. Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, there are circumstances here that are making it much worse. I don't think they can do much about it because, again, they can only produce so much at the moment anyway, between the silicon issues and COVID preventing them from having a full workforce going.
True.
So, I mean, you need that situation to settle down too, so that they can ramp things back up at their factories. Until that happens, I think that's why a lot of people think this is going to continue to drag on.
Yeah. I think it's going to be a good 6 months.
Yeah, personally. I mean, you need more card, and that's the other thing too. They always slow roll these cards out. With the 10 series, it was the 1080 and the 1070. That was all you could get at first. Then the 1060 came, and then the 1080 Ti came, and then the 1070 Ti came, and then you had the 1050 Ti and down the stack, and they did the same thing with the 20 series. There were only a couple of SKUs available, and then they trickle the rest of them out, and that keeps the demand going.
Mm-hmm.
It is just not working this time.
Yeah, 100% agree. Well, we'll find out. We'll find out in a I shouldn't say short because it's going to be a good 6 months, I believe,
Yeah,
before we can
it's still
actually
gonna
see
be a
some
while.
extra out in the
Yeah.
wild. It's insane, dude. But you mentioned cases. We're going to talk about this. But yeah, so you talked about how the
Really,
NZXT H1 case
really
had
quick,
issues.
really quick
Yeah,
before
go
we
ahead.
get into this. I meant to throw this in with the Intel discussion.
Oh, go ahead.
Lot of noise about the core drop, the 11900K, the upcoming Rocket Lake dropping from 10 to 8 cores. I've seen a number of theories on it. Jay's 2 cents believe that part of the problem was they couldn't meet the spec necessary to run the processors at the speed and thermals and power consumption that they wanted, because that was a problem with the 10900K. They wanted 5.3 boost at a certain temperature and at a certain power usage, and they had trouble hitting that. So that was one theory that's floating around. The other thing that has come out is part of the problem too is Intel has been developing microarchitecture, which is basically the foundation of these chips, that's supposed to be used on 10 nanometer parts that don't exist. And so they have to scale that back to the 14 nanometer. And there's a lot of belief that they maybe are not able to actually make the 10 cores fit onto the die without increasing the die, which creates other logistical issues. So there's a lot of belief that there's some talk that I came across the article. It's from AnandTech that talks about how these issues with the 10 nanometer process forcing Intel to go back to 14 nanometer makes it really hard to get the 10 cores onto that die without running into other issues. So they're rolling back the core count. So I guess I wouldn't be surprised if once they get to the actual next step with future processors, because apparently 10 nanometer has been resolved now finally, that we see the core counts go up, because they need to be able to do that, because it's really hard to compete when your competitor is on 7 nanometers and has 12 and 16 core processors.
Yeah.
But Intel really, really wanted to retake the IPC lead from AMD. And this was really the only way that they could do that, was to roll it back to 8 cores and do some other tweaks to the architecture. And supposedly they're going to retake the IPC lead with this Rocket Lake processor. So how long it will last, we'll see.
Right.
I think that we're getting closer to the point to where Intel is finally going to kick the door open and actually give something that's going to excite people again.
Do you think that, because AMD's been kicking their ass, okay? You think that that this is actually gonna kick down the door, and this is actually gonna make them a competitor again?
Well, I think we're eventually going to get, once they get 10 nanometer out the door, I think that's Intel taking the gloves off. They'll finally be able to, once they shrink the processing node down, they'll be able to, it'll be more power efficient. They may lose core clock. I think that's one of the things that happens as you shrink the die, as you shrink the node. You do lose a little bit of clock speed, which Intel is extremely proud of, because it's really the only calling card they've had for the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
But if they can refine their process and they can compete with AMD's 7 nanometer stuff with 10 nanometer, I don't think that bodes well for AMD. That's what I'm curious to see, is if when they finally get the 10 nanometer stuff out, which could be by end of this year, is one of the rumors I've seen, is by the end of this year, we could see 10 nanometer. Obviously, once this goes on YouTube, if you have better information, please correct me. But I'm curious to see, does Intel actually have the ability to strike back?
But is by the end of this year too late, though, for this current 5000 series for AMD?
It depends.
Do you think it's too late?
It depends. I mean, they still have market share. As much as AMD has done, Intel still leads in market share across the board.
Mm-hmm.
It's just the lead has shrunk. It's gone from like way up here to more like right here, but they still got a lot of ground to catch up, and Intel still dominates them in pre-builts and laptops.
Is that because of a contract, or do you think that's just because
I think the general consumer doesn't know who AMD is. And when they go into a Best Buy and they say, I want
I know that brand.
I want Intel, and they're not going to stop you. So they're selling them Intel. And if you go into a Best Buy, if you go into a lot of these box stores, they don't have a lot of AMD laptops.
No.
They're mostly Intel.
That is true. I actually went into Walmart the other day, and I took a look at the laptops, and literally there was probably 3 laptops that were AMD and the rest were all Intel. I don't know. I think it's.
I mean, if you really want to know, if you go, I go to Micro Center's website for Buy Me. They have 17 AMD laptops. They have 264 Intel laptops.
That's a big jump, man. Yeah.
That's part of AMD's battle, which is why I think it's so important for them to push and get the pre-builts and laptops, because as long as that continues to be the case, Intel can struggle all they want in the build your own. All it takes is a couple of good cycles, and they are right back to where they were before.
Mm-hmm.
Again, you got to wait and see. Got to wait and see. Yeah. Get them to 10 nanometer. See what happens.
Mm-hmm.
But God bless AMD for bringing that competition, because Lord knows we needed it.
Yeah, we did. That's for sure.
Same thing with the GPU space.
All right, so about this case that sets on fire, you want to give us a little
oh Lord,
information on that?
The NZXT Firebox. So a little while ago, NZXT came out and said, Houston, we have a problem. We need to stop selling these. And if you have one of these and it hasn't caught fire, you need to go ahead and contact us, and we'll send you some replacement screws. And so the basic gist of what's going on here is the problem is with their GPU riser. It's connected to their motherboard tray, which is connected to the case, which is connected to the power supply. And essentially what happens is if you turn one of the screws in the riser cable just the right way, it potentially is contacting a power trace, a 12-volt rail, a 12-volt trace. If that happens, now it's a rare problem. It's not something that has been a widespread thing, but it is something that NZXT is aware of. They sent out replacement kits that showed how to fix the problem. They basically switched out the metal screws with vinyl screws. However, the team at Gamers Nexus does not believe that this is a 100% fix, because they believe that the riser cable is also problematic based on where they were finding power and ground in the actual riser cable. So it could still potentially be a problem even with a nylon screw being put in place. And they definitely said replace both screws, don't just replace one. And they're going to retest this in a little bit to see. They've got another it's the NZXT H1 case, for those who aren't aware. And they are going to get another one in to see if it's still got the same riser cable. Their recommendation is to replace the screw and the riser cable. That should alleviate the issue, but it's definitely something that could be a problem. Emphasizing the fact that it's a very, very slim chance, and it's really going to require you to have actually messed with that screw for it to happen. But yeah, NZXT setting people on fire.
That's just mind-boggling, dude. You know what I mean? Like, it's just
and it's compounded by the fact that NZXT is really tone deaf right now. They recently had the fiasco with their warranty, where they were selling people on 3200 megahertz memory. People were getting the system, finding it was at 2666 or whatever the default is on their system.
Right.
Apparently, turning on XMP would void your warranty.
Oh, dang.
So there was some misleading stuff going on. They got called out by a number of tech YouTubers, and they reversed their policy. They said enabling XMP will not do it, and we will be doing this going forward because that's a misstep on our part. So they took care of this. The problem at the time was they were super tone deaf on social media. They've got one of those, hipster kind of Twitter accounts where they're always trying to be real cool and snarky. And the problem they were having was that people were coming to them with legitimate complaints, and they were doing these snarky responses. And just kind of, it sits with me I'm kind of biased I don't really care for NZXT at this point. I've had issues with them myself, but you can't do that. When you've got a problem, you gotta deal with it. And it's fine to be real snarky and funny on the internet. I don't have any problem with that whatsoever. But when someone says, "Hey, my computer's broken, can you help me fix it?" and you make anime jokes, it's just not a good idea.
No.
And that's what they were doing essentially. But yeah, your case could catch on fire, so get that taken care of if you have an H1 case.
So here's a question though. Is that something that could happen on any other case?
It's
using the same kind of setup.
It's going to depend. Basically what happened was it was creating a ground loop, and that's what resulted in the fire. The ground loop, instead of being through the power supply to the motherboard to the graphics card and then back the same route, it was finding that alternate path because of the way I think it's more related to the riser cable from what I was able to get out of that video. They had like 3 or 4 other riser cables that did not have anywhere near that kind of setup in the PCI slot on the riser cable. So it seems to be very exclusive to the riser cable that NZXT includes in that case. So a lot of the third-party riser cables aren't going to cause that problem because where their ground and where the power is on the slot is different than what NZXT had. So it's some poor engineering. Also, the trace being that close to the screw hole.
Right.
Poor engineering. Hopefully, they've fixed that.
Because that will definitely become a bunch of lawsuits.
Otherwise, I mean, the H1 case is a cool idea.
Yeah.
It's expensive as hell, but it's a cool idea. You get your power supply, you get their M22 Kraken cooler built in. It's all there.
Right.
You just add the rest of the parts and you're good to go. It's a neat idea. It looks nice. Just kind of a hot box.
Right. Literally.
Potentially.
Literally a hot box. And your house might be hot too.
Yeah. And just, again, an emphasis that it's not a widespread problem. There's only been a handful of these actually that have happened. You just don't want to take that chance.
But making you guys aware of it is a good thing as well. So,
exactly.
So going on to cases that don't start on fire.
I'm so glad you went with that. I'm proud of that one.
You like that?
Like that? There's the case PC cases are in a good place right now.
Yeah.
They're in a good place. They're a lot better than they were a couple of years ago when everybody was slapping tempered glass on everything and saying, "Here, it looks pretty," while your CPU suffocates to death.
Right.
So one of the cases that was announced at CES is still a prototype right now, which is actually the point of CES. But if you've heard of the Fantex Eclipse line of cases, they've got the P600, P500, P400, P300. They now have a P200. Most of them have different letters after them to signify what they are, and it's usually an A. But it's a little ITX Fantex case that Hardware Canucks got a chance to look at, and it was an interesting idea. But the Fantex Eclipse P500A, P400A are examples of, I think, where case manufacturers have kind of drifted. They're back into the airflow with the mesh fronts and still using the RGB. It's like case manufacturers figured out you could put RGB fans behind mesh fronts and they would look okay.
Right.
They would look fine. And the best part about these is these mesh fronts act as dust filters. You don't have to have that second thing in there to restrict airflow more. I know some people have thoughts about that, but the mesh they're using on the front is essentially what they would have used on the dust filter. So that's why that works. The P500A is their larger one. So if you do have thoughts of using an AIO or a basic water cooling loop, you've got enough room in there. The P400A is a little smaller, so if you want something more compact, you've got that. But there are a number of airflow cases, and I don't even remember all of the ones that I told you. I know the one that I'm saving for last is the Corsair, but I mentioned a few different things.
You mentioned
this tells you how good I am at this.
Right. Yeah, you mentioned the Meshify one. And then I believe you mentioned the Lee and Lee.
Yeah.
So
Well, yeah, because I talked about was it the PC011 Dynamic? It's still a good case, and surprisingly good airflow case. And what the PC011 Dynamic did was show that you could put a closed off front panel and still have airflow by putting the fans on the side. So it was a really good design, and I'm glad that they did that, and it was found to actually have pretty good airflow because you can either utilize side and or bottom intake and still get really good airflow. It's a showcase piece. It's a showcase case. Everybody's used it. I mean, you've seen millions of builds in it. Some of the best looking builds, in my opinion, are in an 011 Dynamic. And I've seen more cases take that side intake. My N2719 has a side intake option. Some of the new Corsair cases have it. But I mean, we're seeing Be Quiet now release airflow cases. Their 500DX is an airflow case. But I think the bigger thing is you're giving people options. Yeah. We're seeing more and more case manufacturers now come out with 3-4 variants of the same case and saying, if you want airflow, here's your airflow. You want RGB? Here's your RGB. You want the glass front? Here you go. You got it. Right. Some of them are including panels in with the case. Some of them are giving you just different SKUs that you could choose from. The fact of the matter is that there are options. Like even the Phanteks lineup has a couple of options. You've got the digital RGB variant. You've got a plain one that doesn't have RGB. So, I mean, even there, they're giving you a little bit of option. But to me, I'm really, really interested in what Corsair is doing.
You want to talk about that right now? You want to talk about Corsair?
Yeah, we can move into Corsair. Corsair is overpriced and super expensive and does a lot of dumb stuff. These LT100 light towers behind me as a prime example of unnecessary RGB. So Corsair has gotten it. And the 5000 series is a refresh of the 4000, which is kind of had already done a lot of this stuff. But as you know, you can see they're doing the same thing. Front intake, side intake option. So you're getting choices on where you put things. And I think that's really important. Again, with the 5000 series, you've got your tempered glass version with the front panel being tempered glass. Still allows some air in, but you have the option now to side mount fans and radiators. So you can still get airflow with that closed off, semi-closed off front panel. But they also have their airflow version. And then if you really like to get fancy, they've got the IQ 5000X, which gives you 3 of their pretty basic RGB fans, but it has a controller built in. So you don't have to have a separate lighting node or lighting core or any of that other nonsense that they basically force you to use with everything else. So I think that's a step in the right direction. I think the case industry is doing a lot of good things right now. There's a lot of emphasis on airflow. The Fractal Design Meshify cases, like you were just mentioning, for those who don't know, Fractal refreshed the Meshify series. There was the Meshify C. There was the Meshify S series, so the S2. And now they have the Fractal Design Meshify, no letter, just 2. So you got the Meshify 2, which comes in a standard mid tower and an XL version, which is a full tower. And if you've seen anything on my stream, I've actually demonstrated that case. It's massive.
It doesn't really look massive, but
I mean, you don't think about it.
Like a quarter of it's like, it looks like the front quarter is like taken up. You know what I mean? Like it's capped off for your fans or something.
Well, and they've improved the Meshify series in a couple of ways. I think for me, if you've worked with the original Meshify C, one of the big complaints about the Meshify C was the foam, the fabric filter that they basically forced you to deal with. Like you couldn't remove it unless you cut it out of the case. So cleaning it was a chore. I think they fixed that. They redid that with the S series. I'm not sure. I didn't get into the Meshify S2, but I know for certain on the Meshify 2, on both the standard and the XL, they've completely redone the front panel. It's much improved. One of the big drawbacks to the front panel on the Meshify C was the I/O was attached. So if you pop the front panel off, it just kind of dangled there because you couldn't do anything else with it. The USB ports were attached.
Oh shit!
They changed that. They are now set underneath the top panel.
Hmm.
Instead of, you don't even have to take that front panel off unless you want to get to the screw that holds the tempered glass in place, because that front mesh just swings open. Now, the drawback there is they didn't make it so that you can open the door all the way and pull the filter out. You have to pull the door off the hinges to get the filter out, so kind of a misstep there. But to access the fans, you just pull open that door and you're in there. You can get to your fans.
Yeah, just on the video by itself, it shows it clicks in there and clicks off.
It's easy to take on and off. It's just like you couldn't have gotten like 10 more degrees on the distance it opens, because it's just short enough to where you can't pull the dust filter out. But I mean, the rest of the case, it's well built. It's very solid. You know, the side panels come off. They're toolless. You don't need to do anything especially once you get the screw out of the tempered glass in the front. It just pops off. The top panel pops off. In fact, the rail that the radiators and fans can sit on can be completely removed from the case. It's really well done. And I will eventually have a video on my channel once I am no longer dying of kidney stones, because I really, really love what they did with this case. I love a lot of the details that they've put into it. And again, the mesh front with a front, you can take the dust filter out and it still will do a really good job. And it's just, they really did. They're doing good things there. And again, I tip my hat to them. I tip my hat to Be Quiet, because Be Quiet, again, they've shifted into some mesh options. Lee has mesh options with the LandCool cases. Seems to be a thing right now. It's good to see, because suffocating your parts is not good.
No, not at all. I almost had the mistake when I first got my PC. I like my first PC ever. Like, those stupid desks that you get that have the door that closes?
Yeah.
Well, it was when I had my first kid and I had it on and I accidentally closed the front of it and almost overheated my PC because there was no airflow.
Yeah.
Airflow is very important.
And don't get me wrong, like the cases that were coming out 3 years ago were real pretty. They were pretty to look at, but they just not great in terms of, being able to actually get decent airflow. And I think, a lot of misconceptions were born. Water cooling has become really popular over the last couple of years. Yeah. Not just custom loops, but AIO. I mean, every company has an AIO right now, it seems.
Yep.
And I think a lot of people just thought, well, I'll just throw that AIO in there and voila, problem solved. Except if you're not able to get enough fresh air in, that AIO is going to struggle. So
yeah,
again, a lot of kudos to every case manufacturer who has given us airflow options again, and given us options in general. Just give us options. If someone wants to suffocate their system, fine, you give them the choice to do that. But even then, I think with the Corsair tempered glass version, it still has enough opening that I think you're going to get some pretty good air.
Yeah, I agree.
I might look at it. We'll see.
Expect a video next week. I'm just kidding.
No videos next week. Sorry, guys.
Oh, yeah. You're going to be recovering.
I'm going to be hopefully recovering from the first procedure to remove kidney stones.
Hopefully the recovery goes pretty quick. I'll tell you that, because that sucks. My wife had something similar, not kidney stones, and it was pretty painful. So I kind of understand what you're going through.
Not fun.
No. Yeah. I mean, it's pretty remarkable. Seeing the cases, like, as far as like what I have had to what I have now to what I see coming, it makes me want to switch cases when I see this kind of thing where it has like the airflow, more airflow, cool design and everything. Like it seemed like back in the day it was either you had a really cool looking case and it didn't have good airflow, or you had really good airflow and
it looked terrible.
Kind of looked like dog shit. Yeah.
Well, so if you can even go we can for real quick go with Fantex. Fantex about 4 years ago, the Enthoo Evolve ATX, pretty closed off front panel. Mm-hmm. Great looking case, especially once they released the tempered glass version. That was really I think when the tempered glass thing took off, they had both side panels were tempered glass. it could get air. Like I didn't have any issues partially because I put Noctua fans in the front of it and brute forced it. But I put modified panels from Mod My Mods on there, and it was like night and day, the difference, because they had just like these little tiny slits in the front, and they had little tiny slits on the top, and it looked cool. But it was a hot box, especially once you started stuffing it full of stuff. I think Jay's 2 Cents did a custom loop in that case, and it just suffocated with a full loop, 2 radiators. So when the Evolve X came out about a couple years later, a lot of those problems weren't there. They still had a closed off front panel, but they had a much bigger opening to let air in, and the opening on the vents on the top were much bigger. And then we've moved on to now the Enthoo 719 and the Enthoo Pro. The Enthoo 719 still has a closed panel, but it's a huge opening on either side. Plus, they have the side intake if you don't want to deal with that. And then the Enthoo Pro has a mesh front. And now you've got the P series, the P500A, P600, which there was another one of those where they gave you the option. You could have a closed panel, or you could take that panel off, and it was a mesh front. Options. Just give us options. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm perfectly fine with Corsair, Be Quiet, Fantex, everybody giving you 3-4 SKUs of the same case, depending on what you want it to be. I am perfectly fine with that. I'm even more okay if you include additional panels in the case. Some of them have done that too.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you have the options, you might say it's like, $20-$30 more, but they give you different kind of inserts that you can customize to what you want. It's worth it.
I think Fractal did it on the Define R6. I think it was the last Define that they did that, where you could pop off, you could eat. Things are crashing behind me.
That wasn't important, was it?
Well, nothing shut off, so I don't know what fell. Oh, I know what fell. It's a product packet. It's just fine.
As long as it's no parts.
No, it was it was the AMD box I had sitting up there. I don't ghost or something in here. Never know. Yeah, I mean the Define series, I think one of the cases you could either have a solid panel or you could have a vented panel. Cooler Master, after they had their little debacle with the airflow case that had a closed front panel, the original H500, they eventually started releasing cases that had a tempered glass front, but you could switch it out with a mesh front that they included in the box. Options somewhere along the way is all we're asking for.
At this point in time, what case is your favorite? Your favorite go-to case?
My personal favorite right now is a case I'm not even using because I'm trying to wait until I upgrade my computer to build in it. But the Meshify 2 is probably my favorite right now, just because it ticks a lot of boxes. I'm not particular when it comes to fans being included. A lot of times they're junk. In fact, I've seen enough about the P500A and the P400A to know while they do come with RGB fans, they're 3-pin. They're not PWM, which is weird to me because the fans they sell are PWM, like that are on that right back there. Those are PWM. I don't know why they don't just use those. But again, it's nice that they do that.
Right.
But the Fractal Design Meshify series, the 2 and the 2 and the XL, I think are really good. But I mean, there's so many options out there now. I mean, you really can't go wrong. It's just what kind of use case do you have? Do you want something that's hot swappable? The 011 Dynamic XL can do that. You can have hot swappable drives. And the same thing with the LAN-Cool. The LAN-Cool and the LAN-Cool Mesh have hot swappable bays, I believe. But it really just comes down to aesthetic. I like the look of the new Corsair cases. They seem to perform okay, which is good enough for most people. I'm a Fantex fanboy, but I'm annoyed with them at the same time, which is weird to say because of the RGB issues I've had. There's just so many options. But if somebody asked me today, I would probably say Fractal's cases right now. If you want silence to Define it's not even the R7 anymore. They took all the letters out. It's the Define 7. If you want airflow, Meshify 2.
Yeah, we've had this discussion. Like when it comes to cases and stuff, I went to a brand that I knew, like Corsair and things like that, which is not bad. But at the same time, I didn't branch out and like absolutely like look at the other brands that are out there. When I first saw like Fantex and things like that, I'm like, or like Be Quiet, like you mentioned, things like that. I'm like, that just seems like an off brand. You know what I mean? But the way like you've educated me on them and stuff like that, it's like, no, not really.
Yeah, Be Quiet's definitely not an off brand. Be Quiet
Yeah.
has been around for many years. Their name tells you what their emphasis has been.
Loud.
Yeah, you know, the sound dampening material on all sides, everywhere. They're not great for airflow typically, but again, we've seen them start to shift with that. Their latest cases have airflow options. So for me, the use case is super important to really take it a step further. Do you want RGB? You want pre-built? You want built-in RGB, and you don't want to fuss around with it? The IQ 5000X, if you don't mind messing with IQ. If you do not want to deal with IQ, I would point you towards the P400A or the P500A. This Fantex will work with anything. It just might have color issues in like 6 months. I haven't seen it with the fans, but my gosh, it's so bad on everything else. And it's
So
really...
when it comes to that though, can you just like reset it and go on, or is it like completely damaged?
That's it. They're done. Once they have
really?
the color issue, that's it. They're cooked. I again will eventually have another follow-up video on my channel about this because it happened with the neon RGB strips, which is really disappointing because it's the only product like that on the market.
Huh.
I haven't seen it with the fans. I haven't seen it with the cases either. The case lighting's never done it either. So it's a weird issue to constantly run into.
Maybe it's the same dude on the same line.
I don't know.
Everything up.
I haven't been able to narrow it down. It doesn't matter if it's on case control. It doesn't matter if it's on software control. It happens either way. But I still would say their cases are pretty good. So if you don't want to fuss with the RGB, they have a non RGB P500A and P400A. Well, that's not the A. It's just
right
P500.
Gotcha.
There's a case out there for anybody who has a use for any use case that they have. You want silence, Be Quiet, or the Fractal Design Define 7. There's all kinds of stuff. There's so many cases out there. You need a showcase. You need a showpiece case. Lee & Lee the 011 Dynamic XL. Still one of the best looking cases out there.
Yes, it is. It's very nice.
You need size. You got size. There's Enthuse 719, Enthuse Pro, Meshify 2XL, Define 7XL. Be Quiet has a number of full tower cases as well. You need something smaller. Everybody's got an ITX case, it seems now.
Right.
They're not always true ITX, but they're there. Lee & Lee's 011 has been shrunken to an ITX size. It's actually really cool if you come across a video on it. There's a lot of modularity there.
So there's a lot of options.
There's so many options. It's a really good time, and even I mean, and you can find them still for the most part. They go out of stock, but they come back in better than everything else. It seems
they're not like GPUs or CPUs right now.
They can be, but like the Meshify has been out a lot, and the P500A has been out a lot. They're very popular.
All right, so we're gonna switch gears now, we kind of talked about the stock thing, so we're not gonna get into that. Unless you have something to add about that.
It sucks.
Besides, it sucks.
Can't buy stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. But
you want a console? Sorry.
You got the lottery and
hit refresh and pray. Yeah. Have all your information pre-filled out.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Pray. Pray some more.
Right. Yeah. And then some more.
Okay, I'll stop now.
And then some more. But yeah, so we're gonna switch gears and talk about some gaming, and how personally I feel like the gaming right now is pretty stale. For me, I feel like games are not completed coming to your PC or your console. Cyberpunk is an example.
Oh, poor Cyberpunk. I mean, not really, but they dug that hole themselves.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. Like, I mean, games today where they were supposed to be big old hits or big old duds, you know? And that's a big thing I've been thinking about lately is like, I've expanded. Like many of you guys who have seen my channel, I played a lot of Destiny. That became really stale. It's just recycled content from either D1 or D2 preview, like earlier on, and they just
Destiny's in a
reskinned it.
rough spot right now.
Yeah. Like I love Destiny, but I don't want to play it right now. There's just a lot of things going on right now that is bad for the gaming industry as far as that goes, and I feel like consumers now are actually seeing that and are getting pissed off. Like they are to the point where they're about ready to go into the CEO office and like yank him out of the chair.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. I mean, it's been a while since I've seen it like this. Like the only other time prior to the last couple of years that you'd see something like this, I will never forget the backlash over Mass Effect 3. Like the ending of that game pissed so many people off. Like they spent so much time trying to convince the developer to change the ending, and finally, I think they were thrown a nugget and given an optional change that, it was just I thought it was ridiculous. But
yeah,
now we're talking about games that aren't finished when they're launched. I mean, day one patches are a norm, and now,
and they're not small patches either. They're like 20 gigs.
I mean, we could get into a discussion on game size too at any point, like 100 gig games. Call of Duty.
Why?
Looking at you.
Why?
It's just, I remember when DLC first started appearing, and that was just like, oh, this is so terrible. How are we going to, how can this continue on? And now DLC is like expected.
The norm.
It's expected because it extends the game's lifespan, and now we've accepted it as, hey, I'll pay $20, $30 to play new content, but it needs to be new. It can't be recycled, and that seems to be a problem with some games.
Bungie.
I lobbed that one up there for you, just so you know.
I hit a home.
Yeah. But sometimes games knock it out. Like they put out some really great stuff. There's more than one game that's come out in the last few years where there's just been DLC that's like catapulted the game back into the discussion. Day one patches, constantly having to fix bugs. I mean, they just released a patch for Cyberpunk that introduced a game-breaking bug. Like this is such a mess, and we're not even getting into the last gen console debacle that they're dealing with. Like a lot of promises that they couldn't fulfill, developer crunch. There's a lot of stuff that you could tear into with this situation that's just bad, and it's an indictment on the entire gaming industry as a whole that we're still talking about development crunch. I feel like 15 years after it originally came up as an issue. Like this has been an issue for years. This isn't a new thing, but another game, Anthem.
You said it.
Anthem is another one of those games that it was going to be a big game changer, and did it ever smack itself in the face several times? Like it's just, you're seeing a lot of this.
It KO'd itself, like.
And you keep seeing, oh, they're still working on it. They're gonna bring it back out. And I'm like, okay, it's been like what, 2 years now since it flopped? 3 years? Like that, yeah. I don't know. I don't even know anymore. It's just, it's bad. And it sucks because there are so many good games that come out that just kind of don't get noticed because they're competent. But even those games, they still have day one patches because part of the problem is there's so much hardware. The thing that boggles my mind is the patches. Like the consoles are all the same. They're all the same hardware. That should be accounted for. But we still have day one patches. And we still have fixes. And it's just, some of it is the problems with the consumer. I mean, we've got a lot of gamers out there who demand games be released now. It's not ready. Well, I want it now. Okay, here you go. It's broken. Why'd you release it? Got a lot of that going on too. Let's be real.
Yeah. It's not just games, but
yeah. And I would love to see companies take more of a really ambiguous release. The problem with Cyberpunk is that Cyberpunk has been in development hell for several years. This isn't some game that was announced 2 years ago and they rushed it through the door. This game has been in development in some capacity for several years.
Yeah.
And that
was it like 5 or 6 years, something like that.
That's compounded things at minimum. And that's compounded things. That's made the situation worse. That's when it's really inexcusable. It's different to me if they're just really over ambitious and they tried to push a game that should have taken 3 years out in 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
And those games tend to get fixed. A game that has seemingly had a lot of its problems kind of not happen anymore. Remember Fallout 76?
Yep.
Fallout 76 had all kinds of issues. You don't hear about it anymore. I mean, people are still playing it. They're still updating it. They're still doing things with it, but you don't hear issues. They just kind of kept working at it and kind of got the game in a better place, as far as I can tell. I don't really.
Yeah, and then you got games like No Man's Sky that turned around.
I mean, No Man's Sky is
I haven't played it yet.
No Man's Sky is a prime example of a game that got it so wrong and then pulled itself out of its grave.
Yeah.
And people I know who have played it have said this game is fantastic now. I still haven't played it either, but you know, there's like 150 games in my libraries combined that I haven't played.
Right.
I just want, I just wish there was less pressure on these developers to push things out as quickly as they do. I'm to the point to where these annual releases of games, it's not doing anything for anybody. There's no reason for it. I know you're trying to make money and it's a cash cow and people are going to run out and buy Call of Duty every year that it launches. We're to the point to where this stuff is being pushed too fast and there's too much variety of hardware. And that's where you run into the problems, as far as I'm concerned.
I agree. Yeah, and I just had a game in my head that was another turnaround, and then it kind of like vanished. So if it ever comes back, I'll bring it up. But yeah, I mean, the thing is, I was like, to me, there is no excuse for a single player game to come out and need a day one patch. Okay, it's a single player game. They should have been able to test it and test it and test it and test it and then release it. Like back in the day, you know, with NES, things like that, Sega Genesis.
They had to be done.
Yeah, they had to be done.
You weren't downloading patch on the Nintendo. I'm just throwing
like,
that out there.
What happened to those days? You know, whether it took an extra year to make sure everything was done, okay, then you don't need a year one patch. You don't need all the headaches. You take the time, you get it done, and then you ship it.
I mean, it's the instant gratification aspect of it. So
yeah,
people just expect to have things right away, and it's gotten worse over the course of time. Social media doesn't help. I mean, it's just, I mean, you had that mix of people who were upset that Halo Infinite got delayed versus the people who were like, this needs like 2 more years.
Yeah.
And
I mean, did they see the same demo I did?
I mean, obviously 343 saw the same demo you did because they said, we can't release this shit right now.
Right.
We're going to push this out and hope that we can get it in a better space. And that's fine. It's just, you know, they did the same thing with Cyberpunk. It kept getting delayed and delayed and delayed, and it was still riddled with problems. Now, there are plenty of people who enjoy it. Let's not get away from that. There are a lot of people who said, despite the bugs, they had a really great time with it. But people who had Xbox Ones and PS4s, they got crapped on.
Yeah. And that's where I give PlayStation some credit, right? They took it off the store and said, hey, if you want a refund, we'll refund you. Yeah. Like Xbox is just like, here's a warning. It may run like absolute dog shit. If you still want to buy it, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, both approaches are fine. I mean,
I know, but at the same time, if you actually are a consumer and you're looking into the game, you're going to notice that it's not made for the consoles. Like, let them fix it and then buy it.
Yeah.
But I personally like what PlayStation did was like, all right, it's not a suitable game. We need to take it off. Like before we get yelled at even more by customers saying this is garbage.
And I think it's a tough line to toe. I mean, you've got to take into the developing for previous gen. It's such a tough thing, and it's even harder now because you can't get a PlayStation 5, you can't get a Series X.
Well, here's the thing: wasn't it designed originally for PlayStation 4 and Xbox?
Well, and that's what makes it so egregious. Like we were just saying, the fact that it's been in development for 6+ years, and it still had this problem tells me that they got to a certain point and said, we're looking at next gen.
Yeah.
Sorry, our bad. Yeah. You know, they were looking, even in a couple of years ago, you could still be looking at RTX 20 series cards on PC. Like you're aiming for ray tracing and DLSS and all that other stuff. And I mean, I get my bad PS4, my bad Xbox One. Whoops.
Yeah.
I know we developed for you initially, but here's some muddy textures.
Right. Yeah, it is a tough line.
And it's
man.
hard in every console launch. How long do you support the old console? It's even harder now.
But is it though? Like,
yeah, because nobody can get the new ones. You can't get them.
Besides that,
that's what I mean. It's harder now because you can't get them.
Besides how hard it is to get one. When a new console comes out, they should just aim for that.
Unless your game is like 95% done and you just need to put the finishing touches on it. Yeah, right. I mean, if you're 50% done,
but if it's like a brand new IP that's going to be coming out in the next couple of years or something like that, like just gear it towards the next gen. Like
if you have the capability to do so, right. Yeah.
I mean, like just put it towards the next gen, and that kind of makes it so you kind of sell the next gen to somebody if they're like, I really want that game. Yeah. But I need a PS5 for it.
That aspect depends on when they get the development kits. I mean, I don't know how early they get those things.
Pretty early, I think.
So, I mean, if they get them early enough, then yeah. I mean, at what point is it okay to say, all right, you know what, enough of Xbox One and enough of PS4, focus completely on next gen. Better yet, put all your stuff on PC. Come on, guys. Right. Microsoft's already doing it. Come on, PlayStation. Come on, Sony. Get your stuff Sony on PC.
They got some games.
They are starting to, but
yeah,
they really are reluctant to do it.
There's only a few that I know. Death Stranded, right? And
is that Horizon Zero Dawn is another one?
Oh, and that one, and Detroit Becomes Human or whatever.
Yeah. So they've done it.
Yeah.
But you know, they still hold a lot of their franchises off of it.
When they start bringing Last of Us,
I think that Sony gets really hung up on the exclusive. Yeah, I don't see exclusive stuff.
I don't see them doing that, to be honest. Like with Last of Us, God of War, things like that. Yeah, that stuff will permanently be on like PlayStation.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would also like to see Nintendo stuff come to PC too, but that's never happening.
I think it might, to be honest.
Nintendo is stuck in its ways.
I don't know, dude.
They have no desire. They shut down emulators whenever they can. They really don't like their stuff being on PC.
What gives me a little bit of hope about that, though, is like if you, and I know this is just a weird way of looking at it, but you know the Xbox app that comes on PC? Like I have a couple friends that play, like it'll say Rocket League or it'll say Minecraft, but it'll say on the Nintendo Switch. Like, why the hell would it say that on an Xbox app, right?
Crossplay.
So, right. So that kind of gives me hope in a way of saying,
yeah,
there's a little bit of crossplay. Why can't they bring like it'll be an exclusive to Nintendo for 3 years or whatever, but then it'll come to PC.
Because Nintendo they're control freaks. And if they put it on PC, they have no control.
True.
That's why everything they've ever done has been off the beaten path. They stayed with cartridges with the Nintendo 64 when everybody was moving to disc because they still wanted to control the cartridges. They don't like handing control.
Have that Switch, man. It's weird.
Well, yeah, they use the little flash drives now.
Yeah, but still.
The GameCube was proprietary little disc because they control the production of those. And it's been like that since the NES, where you have to buy the cartridges through them. You can't make your own.
Right.
That Nintendo, they have control issues. That's why they do their online stuff the stupid way they do. That's why they go after YouTubers. They have control issues. They are very protective of their properties. There is not a chance at this point in time, unless there is a massive change at the top, that they will port their stuff to PC.
Who they just got a new CEO like a few years ago, right?
Yeah, because the previous one passed away.
No. Because what's his name retired? I forgot his name. The big dude. The big.
Oh, that's not their. I don't think that was
I
their
thought that.
CEO.
I thought that was the
No,
CEO.
that was the president of Nintendo of America.
Oh, okay. Never mind then.
I mean, the Japanese Nintendo is in charge. They call the shots.
Gotcha.
And Nintendo of
I didn't know if he
Japan.
was America.
No, he was
overall.
president of Nintendo of America. I know who you're talking about. It was Reggie.
Yes, Reggie. Yep. That's
no.
just America. Okay.
Yeah,
Never mind.
yeah,
Never mind, dude.
Yeah, they like I said, Nintendo likes to have really tight control over things. That's why they sue everybody into oblivion, even for fan-made projects. Everybody else is like, "Hey, cool! Look at what these guys did with Halo and made Red versus Blue." Nintendo sues the shit out of you.
Yeah.
So they have their own little mindsets, and I don't see it happening because they lose control.
There's always a glimmer of hope, you know what I mean?
I would love it. I would love to see Legend of Zelda go and be on PC, but
yeah,
that's why these people are so diligent trying to get these emulators to work, because then you can play them on your PC. But as soon as Nintendo figures out a way to shut it down, they do.
Speaking of glimmer of hope,
Destiny?
I'm very excited about this. No. No.
I couldn't help that one. Sorry.
Now you ruined it. No. No. So speaking of glimmer of hope, and by hope I mean Star Wars, the announcement of a open world Star Wars game has got me very excited, and I haven't been excited about a game like this in years. Okay. It's basically the people who are behind, or the company that's like helping. I don't know if they're helping, if they're actually in charge. I have to do some more research on that. Is the one behind Division, right? So they're open world. And Division isn't a bad game. It's just pretty repetitive in a lot of ways. But it has me excited, right? Because this is going to be the first Star Wars open world game. And it kind of has me interested as far as like what it's going to be about. Like, are you going to be like a bounty hunter, like Mando?
Right.
Are you going to go around? Are you going to like catch all these, are you going to be a bounty hunter? Or is it going to be, because they said it's kind of story based as well. So does that mean you're a bounty hunter and you're getting people, or is it based off of a movie and it's just like open in the whole aspect of that? Like,
who knows?
I'm very excited. I'm very excited for it. Because it's not EA for one.
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah.
It's not EA. And EA's, contract is going to be up here in what, 2 years or something like that. And they're I guess looking at like a variety of different, including EA, from what I heard.
Yeah. Well, I think Lucasfilm wants more control over it, so I think they're done with the exclusive stuff.
Yeah, I mean, do you blame them? To be honest, like, have you seen what EA has done?
These games are great. Fallen Order had some solid reviews on it.
I have that game, and I basically got through the intro, and that was about it.
I mean, I didn't play it.
I need to go into it a little bit more.
But I mean, was it Battlefront 1 and 2 that people really like super hyped and then like realized, oh, this isn't so great?
Yeah.
I played a little bit of those.
The first one didn't have any kind of story. Like, it was just multiplayer.
Yep.
Like, and that's what people were mad about. And then the second one came out with some
little bit of story.
Yeah, a little bit of story. And then pretty much was like Battlefront 1 as far as multiplayer. And then Squadrons came out with I haven't played Squadrons, but apparently it's got a story mode, or a story.
And Squadrons has been well received.
And then there's Fallen Order. That's got some story. Actually, it is all story.
Yeah, it's pretty much.
So yeah, I mean, the cool thing about that is like EA made Battlefront, Respawn made Fallen Order. Then you got Ubisoft coming in. They're going to be making an open world game. So you got all these different publishers coming in and making games, and I think that is the best way to do it, because EA has shown that they can't really deliver on.
Well, you know, that seems to be a fair criticism of EA over the last few years to begin with. I mean, you could do a whole show on EA.
It's not just Star Wars when it comes to EA. So
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I'm pretty excited about that. I'm trying not to get my hopes up, but with Destiny falling through the cracks, an open world game, Star Wars. I love Star Wars. And
Star Wars is fun. Star Wars is fun. I enjoy it very much. Mandalorian.
Oh, dude, if it's a Mandalorian open world, I'm done, dude. It's gonna be my game forever.
So good.
So, but is there any last things you want to talk about? Any subjects you want to talk about before we close out tonight?
No, I think we hit most of what we aimed to talk about.
Yeah.
As far as I know.
There is one thing I forgot about. When we talked about exclusiveness, things like that, Xbox decided to make, free to play games not require Xbox Live, which is awesome because that's a step in the right direction. We talked about that. If you want to kind of
so this enters into the territory that we've talked about and others have been talking about too, is why are we still paying for multiplayer on consoles when it's generally free on PC? And it's an excellent question, but there's also some pretty good reasoning behind it. Xbox put its foot in its mouth, no doubt. They hiked the price of Xbox Live Gold, and some people theorize it's to push people to Game Pass Ultimate, which is essentially, it has Xbox Live included with it. So get people to switch and make a little bit more money off of that instead.
Mm-hmm.
You got to there's a couple of things here. You got to remember, you go back to the original Xbox when multiplayer really took off. It's because of Xbox Live Gold.
Mm-hmm.
Halo 2. Halo 2 was the catalyst for a lot of people's multiplayer experiences. This is a time before I think really multiplayer was real big on even the PC scene. And so companies saw, hey, we can charge for people to play multiplayer and they're going to pay because they want to play with their friends. This is a way to make money. Now, this becomes important when you realize that most of these companies lose money on their consoles.
Yeah.
They've got to make that money back. And a lot of it is in the cost of games. But the other portion of that is these services.
Well, I was going to say that originally they say like the Xbox Live and PlayStation Plus, they basically said like originally it was like to help with servers and blah blah blah, so
yeah,
you can play. But now it's like they have the money. It's just
and even then you could sit there and say, well, you still pay for Minecraft servers and you still pay for servers in some games, but a lot of these games provide that for you. You don't have to pay. You can just they'll provide the services for you, and that's great. I mean, that's one of the really cool things about modern gaming. So it isn't cut and dry like I think some people want it to be. Again, Minecraft servers, Arma 3 servers are still a thing.
Really?
Yeah. There's a lot of there are still plenty of games where owning a server is a thing. However, that being said, many games don't even require that. They just provide the online service. And that, again, comes to the size of the developer and publisher involved.
Mm-hmm.
Free to play? Probably shouldn't be charging for multiplayer there because then it's not really free to play. Just putting that out there. Little logistical problem there, in my opinion. I'm torn on it because I think the companies still need to make their money because of, again, think about the Xbox Series X and S and the PlayStation 5, both the digital and the disc drive. You could realistically, if I would be curious, I haven't done this myself, but if you actually priced the parts out that they used, they probably cost more than what you're being charged MSRP wise. I don't think people always think about that aspect. I think they just see the price is the price. Oh, I can play games for $500. Oh, that's really expensive. Guys, if you only knew what you're getting in that $500 console.
Right.
And
just a GPU alone is more than half of it.
I mean, they're doing some really good things, and these consoles they're mini computers. They've been that way for a while now, and they are certainly even more so now, especially since both the Xbox and the PS5 are powered by AMD processors and graphics cards. This is fairly modern technology in there. So I mean, it's a interesting spot. I mean, Xbox does throw the games with gold. PlayStation Plus has the free games as well. They throw these little caveats towards you. So to me, there's still some benefit to them existing. I just don't know that necessarily it's going to continue to last. I think Microsoft is onto something with Game Pass.
I think they're also seeing that games like I'm throwing out these AAA titles, right? These AAA titles that are free, right? You got Warzone, right? You have Fortnite, you have Destiny. I'm just throwing them out there.
I know. I know.
And there's a few other ones that are free to play like that. And those games have realized that if you put things as free, people don't they're like, well, I didn't pay for the game, so I'm going to spend $60 on all together on skins or so on and so forth because I didn't pay for the game.
Yeah.
And they're actually getting more money out of it in the end than, trying to sell the DLC, trying to, sell all that kind of stuff, like the main game itself, things like that. So the formula that they're seeing that, and they're like, well, if we make Xbox Live free to play as a test and be like, how many people are actually going to jump on now because it's free, and that includes the multiplayer. Like I said, with those three games alone have multiplayer involved with it. So I think they're going to test it out, and probably within a couple of years it'll be absolutely free, and then they're going to have the benefits like the free games if you decide to do the gold, and there'll be a couple of other things thrown in there. Maybe with gold it'll be like you get the free games, but then you get also Game Pass involved. Yeah. You know what I mean? They'll throw some bone in there so they make it so you want to buy it anyways.
Yeah, I mean, you hit it with bringing up Fortnite. I know there's a lot of hot and cold feelings about Fortnite in the world of gaming, but I mean, I am on both sides of that fence because the game mode I actually really like basically died and was not free to play ever. They nailed save the world. This poor game should have been free to play from the start, but they got to make money somehow. That's how they funded Battle Royale, by the way.
Yeah, it's true.
They nailed it on that one. Epic nailed a model that we've seen other companies use, but to a degree that nobody else has really been able to match. And again, the use of a battle pass, the use of V-Bucks, the use of the marketing, getting Marvel on board, getting all these big franchises to put their characters into the game. It's remarkable what they've done, regardless of what you think of the actual game itself. To your point, I think you're going to see more companies try to take that model. I think the only thing that's going to that's a high risk, high reward kind of thing. Or if people don't go in and buy those things, what do you got?
Right.
I think Apex is another one that it's free to play. Yeah, it's free to play. They've managed to make it work. It hasn't caught fire the way Fortnite has, but it has its audience.
Yeah.
So it can work.
I think the free to play formula is starting to get around, especially after Fortnite was released and the success it had. And I think that is why more companies are looking at it. Like Call of Duty jumped on the free Warzone. And I believe this is like Illuminati off in a distance thing, but
oh boy, get your tinfoil hats on, guys.
I believe Call of Duty will play in the next couple of years.
Good.
I believe it's going to happen because especially with like Warzone and stuff like that, because what they're going to do is they're going to do the Fortnite approach and be like, hey, Call of Duty is free. They're already doing it with the DLC. They're already throwing that at you for free. So I think what they're going to do is be like, they're looking at, I don't remember the numbers, but it was astronomically huge. Like it was like people who bought off of the like their store for skins was like, I wanted to say it was like $1.8 billion or something like that. It was huge. So why in the world do you need to sell a game? Yeah, for more money, of course. But if you can make 1.8 billion or whatever it was just off of skins, why not make it free to play, get more people involved, and then sell more skins?
Yeah,
Because
I think you're onto something there.
so
And people will buy them if you make
yeah.
them look cool enough. As long as you don't overstep that and get into the pay to win territory. That's when people get mad. And that was one of the things, I think, was it Battlefront 2 that ran into that? It was initially you could buy these characters that made a difference in how powerful you were if you just threw $100 at EA.
Yeah,
Because I remember that was a huge thing because people were just like, why am I playing this game if this guy just spent $100 to just basically wipe me every single time he sees me?
Yeah.
You gotta watch that stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, skins, cosmetics, all that stuff. I mean, if people want to buy it, that's on them.
And I'm not gonna lie here. I was very, very tempted to jump on Fortnite when I saw that there was a Mando skin just to see what it looked like.
Yeah, like I said,
I don't even have it installed, and I almost installed it just to see it.
Fortnite, they've nailed it on the marketing and presentation of that. Again, whether you like it or not, I mean, in-game concerts, in-game events, they've done some wild stuff in that game, and
they've had concerts, right?
Yeah, they've had in-game concerts.
It's insane, dude. It's insane.
And it brings in record numbers of people, and their stuff doesn't crash. Not all the time. It sometimes does, but it doesn't crash all the time.
Was that a Destiny's jab?
Looking at you, Destiny, your in-game events.
Yeah. Freaking weasel.
I got weaseled for the 4th straight time.
Right? And then the event happened and I missed it. What the hell?
And everybody's recordings of the event has contacting Destiny servers at the bottom.
Right? Yep. Got to cut that off. We got to make it look cool.
Love you, Destiny. I do.
Yeah, I mean, that's my whole I guess my whole jib jab about gaming as current, Like I said, I've expanded out just because the lack of content there is in games right now, and
it's hard to be focused on a game right now unless you're truly passionate about it. I mean, they're seeing a lot of people shift to variety streaming, which is fine.
Yeah,
go for it.
Yeah, for the love of God, I even tried Tarkov.
I saw that. It's pretty hysterical. I've seen a couple people try it. I'm like, nope.
I don't know. Tarkov for me, like it's fun to play with friends, like when I play with the boys, but like dying to not knowing who they are because they have the same armband and stuff like that is just really annoying.
Yeah,
it's just like there's only so much loss I can take.
I have enough trouble identifying teammates when it's clearly identified. So you can't put me in a place where I can't identify who they are because I'm either going to be dead or I'm going to have killed my entire team.
I can see that.
Oh, it's an absolute thing.
But anyways, I think we're going to wrap it up there. We're almost on our 2-hour mark. And I want to thank you guys for stopping by, whoever's around. Much appreciated. If you guys are new, smack that follow button on YouTube. Smack the subscribe button. Davey, you're going to be having prior this one and more on your channel, so we'll put that all down below, and you guys go check them out. And is there any last words you want to say, Davey?
Yeah, just hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll look forward to doing more of this and hopefully not be talking about hardware shortages and all this other stuff. Let's talk about stuff we can actually get our hands on.
Yep. And just so you guys know, okay, this is how I'm looking at this. I have some kind of like PC experience, but not as much as Davey. So Davey's like the pro compared to me. All right. So this is like the noob and the pro. Okay. I'm the noob. He's the pro. Noob, pro, noob, pro. Noob,
I mean, for the love of God, I have a test bench sitting behind me.
Oh, I thought that was just showing off.
Oh, I am showing off too, but
But yeah. So, anyways, if you guys hear like dumb questions from me, that's probably why. And there'll be a lot of them.
And to those in chat, if there's something that you see and you think is interesting and want us to bring up, by all means, dump it in there.
Dump it in. Dump it in.
I'm not going to be saying hi to all of you, but you know.
Why not?
But you know, if there's something of relevance, something of importance, something that you can add to the conversation, by all means, drop it in.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. All right, guys. Well, that is it for tonight. Thanks for stopping by, guys. Appreciate it. Like I said, if you guys are new, smack that follow button, slap that subscribe button, and we'll catch you guys next time. Peace out, guys.
Bye-bye. Bye.